Hey, it's Missy.
It's April.
And this is
SheelaNaGig.
Hey, everybody. I hope you're doing well. Thanks for joining us today. Each week we present, we explore our own SheelaNaGig, a woman whose strength and perseverance has led her to greatness, or one who inspires us, or both maybe. Maybe it's somebody you've heard of, maybe it's somebody you have not heard of, and we think you should know about her. Maybe we feel like you should know more about her if it's somebody you have heard of. So that's what we're doing today. Hi, April. How are you doing?
I'm well. I'm very good.
What's going on with you?
Well, we just, in full disclosure, went out and had pizza.
Yeah, well, it was like cauliflower
crust pizza.
From Biology.
And they were like individuals, and we were ravenous.
We were ravenous, it's true.
And now I'm so full I can't move.
I know, we're a little stuffed, and it's it's evening with SheelaNaGig. Yep. That's a little unusual, but we're looking at some beautiful cloud formations here.
Yes, Missy has a beautiful view of LA. It's just a panoramic.
I never knew I wanted a view until I had one, and now I just love it. I love it. But how are you? Good?
I'm good. Other than stuffed, I'm good. How about you?
My friend took me to Pachanga Casino over the weekend. My friend Gina, shout out to Gina.
For your birthday.
For my birthday. My birthday's on April 2nd, so it's coming up.
Tomorrow.
Is that tomorrow? No, it's the day after tomorrow. Don't scare me. God. So I call it Missy Gras. I like to celebrate the whole week. And that was just the beginning of Missy Gras. It was really fun, though, because I'm not really a casino girl, but I created a scavenger hunt for us.
She made her friend walk around the casino with one of those toilet paper hats on her head.
No, it was a toilet seat cover around her neck.
Well, yeah. Oh, around her neck.
Yeah,
I stand corrected.
She was kind of embarrassed. And we had to get pictures of both of us standing on public toilets. And yeah, I mean, there were several things. And I never knew my friend was so embarrassed. I wasn't very embarrassed. I mean, I had several drinks, and hey, it's how it goes. But it was pretty fun.
Yeah.
I felt I'm a little bit immature. I don't know if you know that about me. I can be a little bit immature. I think I may have mentioned this one time. My daughter said, I was driving, and she said, Daddy's a lot more mature than you. And there's a pause. And I kind of looked at her, and she said, but you're a lot more fun. And I said, I'll take fun over mature any day.
There you go.
Thank you very much. Yeah.
What else is there, right?
I know.
Right? Is that even a debate?
No. I don't think so. I don't think so. So I'm just happy that I got the year that my mom didn't. I know I've talked about this in the podcast before. My mom died at 56, and I'm turning 57 in a couple days. And I got that year that she didn't get. So that feels pretty good, to marry Jean.
That sounds good.
Yeah.
To marry Jean.
But who are we talking about today, April?
Well, we have a fabulous Sheela. I'm really looking forward to talking about her.
Me too.
Yeah.
Ooh, pray do tell.
Well, have you ever heard of Gladys Bentley?
I feel like the name is slightly familiar, but I don't know.
It should be familiar. She had a peak, and unfortunately, we'll talk about what happened after her peak, but she was a blues pianist.
Yes, I know who you mean. Yes. Okay.
She was a singer, a performer, and she was an unapologetically out of the closet lesbian drag king pioneer.
Oh, I love that.
Yeah, she emerged in New York City during the Harlem Renaissance, and that was in the Probation era when, you couldn't have booze unless you went to one of these secret places. And Harlem was a big lightning rod for having a good time. Underground house parties and booze, mixed race mingling, and same-sex dancing.
Ooh.
But before we get there, Mary Bentley was born on August 12th, 1907. And that was Gladys's mother. And she was born in Trinidad. And her father, George Bentley, he was American. I presume he was born in Philadelphia.
Okay.
And while it was widely believed that Gladys was born and raised in Philadelphia, she was raised in Philadelphia, she once told Groucho Marx on a rare TV appearance in 1958 that she was originally from the port of Spain, Trinidad. But Gladys often told tales, and we don't always know what was true or not true.
That's like my dad's whole side of the family, man.
Is that right?
Yeah, they're storytellers.
Yeah.
Storytellers.
If you don't like it, make it up.
It's interesting.
Yeah. But she was the eldest of 4 siblings, and they were a low-income family, and she had what she reflected on as a very unhappy childhood.
Oh, Gladys.
It began when her mother, Mary, really desperately wanted a son, and she was the firstborn. And Gladys is quoted as saying, "When they told my mother she had given birth to a girl, she refused to touch me. She wouldn't even nurse me, and my grandmother had to raise me for 6 months on a bottle before they could persuade my mother to take care of her own baby."
Oh, that's really sad.
Yeah, that was sad. And she really felt like that early rejection from her mother framed a big part of her life.
Oh, yeah, it defined her, I'm sure, in a lot of ways, especially early on, yeah.
And in an interview with Ebony magazine, Bentley stated that it seemed I was born different. Like she just had that sense that she wasn't like everyone else. From an early age, she defied gender normative behaviors and femininity. She didn't identify with the ideal beauty of being slender. She was round and boyish. And by the age of 9, she stole and started wearing her brother's suits. She didn't like wearing girls' clothes. She preferred to wear boys' clothes, felt more comfortable in them. And that lack of gender conformity led to classmates teasing her, and her family ostracized her, and she just felt like nobody understood her and that there were no role models for her. And she also remembered at that time dreaming about and being infatuated with one of her primary school female teachers, and she didn't understand those feelings. She didn't know what that was until, of course, later in life. But her behavior seemed so abnormal and unladylike, it led her parents to drag her to psychiatrists who labeled her as a non-heteronormative and extreme social maladjusted young lady.
Oh, God.
Her inability to feel comfortable and her family's inability to accept her as she was led to Gladys running away at age 16 to go live in Harlem.
That's so sad.
And it was her dream to become a musician. One of the few things that she did enjoy in childhood was music, and she played music, piano, and she sang from a very early age, and her endless practices and playing of music really paid off. She had an astonishing talent.
Wow.
So when she got to New York, she heard that Harry Hansberry's famous Clam House in Manhattan was looking for a male pianist, and so she dressed up in a tuxedo, auditioned, and she ended up blowing out all the competition.
Oh, good for her.
She had this fierce piano skill and a very, very resonant kind of voice. I'll talk more about her voice, but she would belt out songs, and she started to sing a lot about the blues. She was a blues singer, and she sang about male exploitation and domestic abuse. And this is when she began also performing in full men's attire. Her favorite outfit was a white full dress shirt, stiff collar, small bow tie, Oxfords short, Eton jackets, and hair cut straight and back.
Nice.
And she perfected her act in this male outfit and became very popular and successful. So she was basically a black lesbian who liked to cross-dress. And she quickly became famous for pushing the boundaries on gender and sexuality, while she also at the same time created spaces of inclusivity. She just sort of welcomed everybody into her world. She was said to be loud, proud, and open.
I love that.
So as her popularity grew, she took popular songs of the day and put the filthiest lyrics possible into them.
It's definitely my kind of gal.
Yeah. Sweet Alice Blue Gown and Georgia Brown combined with some songs about anal sex. And while I'm not familiar...
Wait, did you just say anal sex?
Yes. So
on the SheelaNaGig podcast?
On the SheelaNaGig
wow.
podcast.
That's a first.
And while I'm not exactly sure of the lyrics of Sweet Alice Blue Gown, I'm willing to bet they did not originate with anal sex. Just guessing.
You said anal sex twice on the SheelaNaGig podcast.
Yes, well, it's SheelaNaGig.
I love April.
So as her career skyrocketed at Harry Hansberry Clam House in the 1920s, she iconically started to appear in top hats and tuxedos and started, as I was saying, getting more and more lewd with her original blues parodies of popular songs, and eventually becoming basically Harlem royalty. People flocked to see her.
She's so rad.
And when she wasn't accompanying herself on a dazzling piano, the mightily built singer often swept through the audience and openly flirted with women in the crowd and soliciting their dirty lyrics for more of the songs that she sang. So she just got everybody going.
That's awesome. Now, did the audience know that she was a woman?
Oh, yeah. That was one of the things. Although she did dress in man's attire, she wasn't really trying to hide that she was a woman. She just enjoyed wearing men's attire. So even though she's credited with sort of helping to launch the drag king moment or the drag queen moment, she didn't exaggerate being male. She didn't try to overdo it. She didn't try to deceive the audience that she was actually a male. She was clearly a female, but she was a female who loved to dress in men's clothing and and did that to the hilt.
Fair enough.
So her salary at the Clam House started at $35 a week plus tips and went to $125 a week, and the club was soon after renamed. Barbara's exclusive club, and that was after her own stage name at the time, Barbara Bobby Mitten. And I'm not sure how that stage name came about, because she was ultimately really recognized as Gladys Bentley, but for a while she did go by that stage name.
Interesting.
And she then began performing at the Ubangi Club on Park Avenue, which is a little ways from Harlem, and got an accompanist on piano and was successful enough to own a $300 a month apartment on none other than Park Avenue.
Ooh, I always want to look up how much that was during those days.
Well, I think I have actually an idea here. She had servants and a nice car, and although some have said that she was living in the penthouse with one of her lesbian lovers, she toured the country all over, with destinations being in Cleveland and Pittsburgh, Chicago, and Hollywood, where she was well liked.
You said Hollywood.
Hollywood, not Hollyweird, Hollywood, where she was well liked by none other than Cesar Romero, Hugh Herbert, Cary Grant, Barbara Stanwyck, celebrities that came out to see her when she was in LA.
Love that.
So Gladys went on to headline in the early 1930s at the Ubangi Club, where she had a chorus line of drag queens backing her up, men dressed as women.
Oh my God, that's so awesome.
And it included, of course, her signature tailcoat and top hat. And she played the piano and sang her own raunchy lyrics to popular tunes of the day. This was her voice. It's described as deep, growling voice. I guess very sensuous and very earthy growling. The Clam House appeared prominently on cartoons of Elmer Sims Campbell's nightclub map of Harlem. And in the center of the image, just off 7th Avenue, Campbell drew a sketch of Bentley at the piano, writing Gladys's Clam House, Gladys Bentley wears tuxedo and hi-hat. So she inspired a lot of artists at that time.
Yeah.
And in 1934, a Midtown Manhattan nightclub called King's Terrace was padlocked by the police after an observer complained of hearing dirty songs performed there.
God forbid.
This was an after-theater club near Broadway, and it was depicted as liberally painted male sepians with effeminate gestures and voices. This was the drag queen chorus around her. And Gladys Bentley, who was no less provocative, performing in her signature white top hat and tuxedo and tails, sang her raunchy songs laced with double entendres that thrilled and scandalized her audiences. And while the performance of what an observer called a masculine-garbed smut-singing entertainer, he did not like her, led to the shutdown of the King's Terrace, Gladys's powerful voice, fiery energy on the piano, and the bold lyrics she sang still made her the star of New York City's nightclubs.
I love that. Ugh, I love her already.
In Bentley's account of her life, her audience was as fascinated by her style as it was by her music. As a singer, she became known for her deep, as I was saying, growling voice and a trumpet-like scat. As a performer, she was advertised by event promoters as a male impersonator, which she really wasn't. But she filled venues with loud, rowdy performances in which she would flirt with women in the audience unabashedly.
I love that.
So, as I said, she became a fixture in the clubs all over New York City and eventually toured nationally. And at the height of the fame, Ebony magazine did interview her, and she told reporters in that interview that she had married a white woman at a ceremony in New Jersey. And though the woman's identity has never been disclosed and does not appear to have been found in any public records, she legendarily told things, as I was saying, and people often had no idea whether she was telling the truth or just making things up.
So we have no idea if this wife was real or not?
No idea.
Huh.
But her performances were considered comical, sweet, and risque for the era, and the audiences that came to see her came to hear her openly sing about sexual relationships, and often she sang about sissies and bulldaggers, making fun of men. She also mocked high-class society using low-class humor, and she applied aspects of the sexually charged black blues to demure romantic white ballads, creating a culture clash between these two music forms. Bentley was known for taking popular songs and putting a promiscuous spin on them, as we looked at earlier.
Oh, I love her. I wish I could have been at one of her shows. I wonder if her family ever made it out.
I have a feeling they did not.
Yeah, maybe not. What a shame, though.
What a shame. She was lauded by, among many admirers, Langston Hughes, who once called her an amazing exhibition of musical energy, a large, dark, masculine lady whose feet pounded the floor while her fingers pounded the keyboard, a perfect piece of African sculpture animated by her own rhythm.
Oh, so beautifully written.
Isn't that lovely?
Oh, Langston Hughes. Love that.
Yeah. So in August 1928, she signed with OK Records, a record company, and she recorded 8 sides over the course of the next year up until 1929. In 1930, she recorded a side with the Washboard Serenades by Victor, and later recorded the Elixir and Fame labels. Her vocal range was so wide, she mostly sang in a deep, low range, but she could also hit surprisingly high notes.
Yeah, if she could scat like she could.
Mm-hmm.
Definitely.
And her performances appealed to black and white, gay and straight audiences alike, and many celebrities attended her shows. And in 1928, her recording of her Worried Blues for OK Records, Bentley sang, "What made you menfolk treat us women like you do? I don't want no man that I gotta give money to." And while she recorded intermittently in the 20s and 30s, none of her recordings captured the bawdiness of her live performances, and she was not widely played on radio. And this may attribute to why she was such a bright, shining, charismatic star, and then she pretty much disappeared.
Right.
And was not really well
also
remembered.
her lyrics, the content was a little risque, so I'm sure
Yes.
that couldn't be played.
Right. I mean, live audiences flocked to hear it and spurred her on and helped give her raunchy lyrics, but it didn't really translate as well to certainly not radio or recordings.
Yeah.
But her rise to fame demonstrated how liberated the prohibition culture of the Harlem Renaissance really was, and how welcoming the blues tradition could be as a form of gay expression. She often confronted male entitlement and sexual abuse in her lyrics, and declared her own sexual independence. This was, in fact, the continuation of a tradition begun by other singers in the early 20th century, particularly singers like Bessie Smith, Ma Rainey, and Lucille Bogan, who were some of the most vocal musicians that were critical of the patriarchy of that time. According to Jim Wilson, author of the book Bulldaggers, Pansies, and Chocolate Babies, Performance, Race, and Sexuality in the Harlem Renaissance, how's that for a name?
Yeah, I want to read that book for sure.
Harlem was also a community that the police turned a blind eye to during the Prohibition era. People, many of whom were white, came out for the entertainment and to access alcohol in crowded Harlem nightclubs and speakeasies and those little underground parties. So while Harlem was home to African Americans facing the challenges of the Great Depression, it also became a destination for pleasure seekers who, Wilson said, were eager to let loose with their bourgeoisie attitude and experiment both socially and sexually.
Ooh.
Woohoo! The Harlem Renaissance is really a critical point in the history and revolution of African Americans in the 20th century, says Gwendolyn Reese, curator of music and performing arts at the Smithsonian's National Museum of African American History and Culture. The creativity, she said, that came out of that period shaped music, theater, dance, literature, intellectual thought, and scholarship in a way that has shaped who we are today.
Wow.
But outside the entertainment world of that protected enclave, Bentley often received criticism and backlash about her lifestyle and her many tall tales. Some of her criticisms came from religious members of the African American community itself. They were concerned that she was damaging the racial uplift in the era of Jim Crow. So she did have some African Americans who did not appreciate her style and her reputation. The decline of the Harlem speakeasies began with the repeal of the prohibition, and that really was what plummeted Gladys's fame. There was a crackdown on illicit or disorderly bar spaces, disorderly being a code word for gay, and Bentley's popularity really began to peter out. She tried to continue her musical career by playing in a number of gay night spots, but didn't achieve as much success as she had in the past. As time progressed, the federal laws continued to change, and at some point, Bentley had to carry around special permits to allow her to perform wearing men's clothing.
Oh my God.
They were not allowed.
You need a freaking permit for that?
You needed a permit. It was no longer permitted for one gender to wear the clothes of the opposite.
What the fuck? That's crazy.
Without that permit, yeah. And she was frequently harassed for wearing men's clothes, which was reminiscent of her childhood. And she claimed that she'd married a white woman in Atlantic City, and that caused more outrage. And again, none of those marriages were substantiated, and we never know when Gladys was telling us truth or fiction, but it wasn't really getting her anywhere in terms of the popularity she had just so recently enjoyed. On May 15, 1958, she appeared as a contestant on You Bet Your Life, engaging in a discussion with Groucho Marx before accompanying herself on the piano as she sang Them Their Eyes.
Oh, I love that.
The rumored marriage...
I love that song, actually.
The rumored marriage with this white woman had all the markings of an early 20th century scandal, and Gladys claimed that not only was it a same-sex civil ceremony, but the union was between herself and, as I said, a white woman. So while Wilson says there is no record of that union taking place, the story is just a glimpse into her unapologetic openness about her own sexual orientation and her acute understanding of the power of shock value. So one of the frustrating and actual joyous things about Gladys Bentley was that she was constantly reinventing herself. Oftentimes when she mentioned something about her personal life, you had to take it with a grain of salt and not necessarily as truth, says Wilson.
Right.
So in 1937, Bentley decided, after many attempts to restart her life in New York, she decided to pack up her bags and move to Los Angeles.
All right.
She relocated in Southern California, where she was billed as America's greatest sepia piano player and the brown bomber of sophisticated songs.
Oh, love that.
So again, she was often harassed for wearing men's clothing, and she became a leading entertainer in LA and in the Bay Area, though she sometimes had to wear skirts on stage to appease the club owners who were hiring her to perform.
Ugh.
She was less restricted at Mona's 440 Club, the first lesbian bar in San Francisco, which became her home base for a time. There she kept playing at various upscale supper clubs and bars, but was forced to tone down her act and wear skirts by bar owners who didn't want to break California's anti-crossing dressing laws.
I can't believe they had laws for that.
They literally had laws.
What the hell?
Isn't it interesting that it went backwards? You know, during the Prohibition, she was able to wear what she wanted and say what she wanted. And then as time went on, we think we advance, she actually had to tone things down.
Oof. Yeah, you do see that.
So during that time, she was actually forced to go back into the closet just so she could still perform the music she loved to sing and share in public.
Having to deny who she is just to get an audience.
Yep. That was the price she paid for that. In 1952, she wrote her life story in an article for Ebony magazine entitled, "I Am a Woman Again." For many years, I lived in a personal hell, she wrote. Like a great number of lost souls, I inhabited that half-shadow, no man's land which exists between the boundaries of two sexes. In the article, Gladys claimed that she was cured after taking hormone treatments, cured of being gay after taking hormone treatments, and also that she now was married to a man. Her supposed husband, Charles Roberts, a cook in Los Angeles, said to be married in Santa Barbara, California, and went on a honeymoon in Mexico. But Gibson, the husband, denied ever marrying her. She released photos of herself cooking and cleaning, essentially performing the stereotypical feminine roles.
Oh, Gladys, what? They broke her. They broke her.
It was said that if you read the article closely, you'll see that she's really talking about the struggles and heartbreak of being shunned by society. One commentator said, "I think it's really a plea for understanding and compassion." The article was accompanied by photos of her wearing very matronly white house dress and, again, performing the roles of a homemaker, cooking, making beds for her husband, and wearing a dress and flowers in her hair.
Oh, Lordy.
After all those top hats.
Lordy.
Gladys's name doesn't have the same recognition as many of her Harlem Renaissance peers, in part because the risque nature of her performances would have kept her out of mainstream venues, newspapers, and history books, not to mention, as we said earlier, the recordings, that really didn't go very far.
Right.
In 1960, after a lifetime as a popular entertainer and a woman who lived on the fringes of the world that wasn't ready to accept her, Gladys Bentley succumbed to pneumonia at the age of 52. She was living at the time with her mother in California, waiting to be ordained as a minister in the Temple of Love in Christ, Inc. Today, she is being rediscovered for the same reason that her story was obscured during her youth. Gladys Bentley should be remembered for being a gender outlaw, says Wilson. She was just defiant in who she was, and for gender and sexuality studies today, she shows the performance of gender.
Wow.
At the time of her death, she had been more involved in the church and had just been ordained as a minister despite never getting her official paperwork. She is buried beside her mother at Lincoln Memorial Park in Carson, California. Gladys never tried to pass as a man, as we were saying, nor did she playfully try to deceive her audience into believing she was biologically male. Instead, she exerted a black female masculinity that troubled the distinctions between black and white and masculine and feminine. In 2016, musician Charlotte Ammons released an album entitled Twilight for Gladys Bentley, which paid tribute to Bentley's legacy and reimagined Bentley in relationship to the hip-hop culture, which cool. I'm sure she would have loved.
Yes.
In 2019, the New York Times newspaper began a story called, appropriately enough for the SheelaNaGig podcast, Overlooked No More, in which the editorial staff aims to correct a perceived bias in reporting by republishing obituaries from historical minorities and women. Bentley was one of the featured obituaries in Overlooked No More.
Oh, that's good.
Because at the time of her passing, the New York Times did not print her obituary.
Ugh.
The entire drag community has pioneering icons like Gladys to thank for setting the stage for artists today to really express who they are on the inside and on the outside.
Oh, that's beautiful. Going back to her mom, she was buried by her mom and lived with her mom, so obviously there was some reconnection there at some point.
Yeah, and it seems as though after she let go of dressing as a man and made concessions that she was cured, that she went through hormone replacement. I mean, I think she was forced into that because she wasn't going to be able to continue her act in the Harlem Renaissance. Yeah, that bubble came and went, and there was no room for that wonderful, larger-than-life figure any longer.
There's no room to be yourself any longer.
Well, that was seemed to be true. Whether she made the most of it and really embraced her church and the spiritual role, or whether she just went along with that because she didn't have a choice, that's unclear.
Right. I don't think I knew that part of the story, that she had come around and reclaimed her sexuality.
Yeah, she did write this autobiography in which she renounced her earlier ways and felt that she was rehabilitated.
It's disappointing, but certainly it's sad. It's sad within the framework of this world that we can't always pursue who we are.
But in the Ebony magazine where she was photographed, it was interesting that she wore very dowdy, like almost the opposite of what you'd expect her to wear, and the commentators' notations that perhaps she was really commenting on how difficult society had treated her really for most of her life.
It's kind of heartbreaking. It's definitely heartbreaking. I think you know this. I did a little drag king for a while. Back in the day.
Yeah.
Back in the day, and I have to say I loved it. I was this. It started because I had a publishing deal with EMI, and I had gotten invited to an event. And shortly before the event, I had talked to my guy at EMI, and I really wasn't getting any work. And I said, "Hey, dude, I'm not getting any work. Like, what's going on?" He said, "There's been a real shift. For a while it was all about the ladies and Lilith Fair, but now it's all about the dudes again. So sorry." And it pissed me off. So I was like, you know what? Fuck that. I'm going in drag.
I'm coming as a dude.
I did. And I just remember it was such a study in just social behavior. I really got into the ritual of it. I really went above and beyond. Like, I bought human hair and I glued it to my arms and my hands and my chest.
Missy does love costumes.
Yeah. Well, I hate Halloween, but I like costumes.
I like costumes.
And I don't like doing anything small.
No, nothing small.
No. Like, if I'm going to do it, I'm going to do it.
Go big or go home.
That's right. Go big or go home. So I had a human hair mustache that, and I had a little package I would put in my pants. It took me quite a while to get ready.
I would imagine.
Yeah. And I was able to just dye my hair kind of with temporary dye dark, and I would slick it back into a ponytail. And I would become Donnie. And just driving a car felt different. Just looking at people, it was so interesting. It was so interesting. And then I remember it was a big deal at the time, and I kind of got in trouble with my publisher at the time, and yeah, it's a long story. I won't go into it too much, but after that I was like, fuck it. Donnie has a band called Birth of Fist. Birth of Fist is Donnie's band, and in fact that night I was giving out flyers for my new band, Birth of Fist, but I didn't really know it was going to be a band, and then it turned into a band, and we played gigs, and then I started doing some drag at used to be a great drag club in the Valley called the Queen Mary. And
I remember the Queen Mary.
Yeah, and so I'd go perform at the Queen Mary. Fine. And I mean, it was very interesting to me. I mean, my dad is from New Orleans, and he grew up with a lot of drag, so my dad was so proud of me. My dad thought it was fun. You're fantastic. He had a big picture of me on his office wall in drag, and I was like, this is kind of cool. Like, it was very interesting. I did get beat up a few times by men that thought I was trying to steal their wife, and that kind of sucked. And Donnie definitely drank a lot, and
more than Missy,
more than once. Threw up his mustache right off his face.
Thank you for sharing that.
Yeah, it's okay. Yeah, but it was such a different energy, and so different to be able to experience that energy.
Sure.
I found it fascinating, and I enjoyed it. I enjoyed it very much. So it's interesting to hear about her. But I'm just sad. I'm sad that had she lived in this era, how things could have been different for her.
Absolutely.
Yeah. We think about that sometimes, and sometimes it seems frustrating because it seems like we've made no strides, and we're still a homophobic, world and whatever. And, we still are in a lot of ways. We certainly have a lot of ways to go, but you feel like there's, some changes. There's some steps in the right direction.
Well, even the interest in resurrecting Gladys Bentley's name and her memory and her work, it was really fun to research her and learn about her and pull up things. And most of these articles are fairly recent. There's just sort of a recent recognition. The New York Times belatedly printing her obituary and recognizing the slate that they gave her at the time. I mean, there is some reckoning. Yeah. And she did have this remarkable period, although it was very brief, where she really got to express everything in her.
I love it. We love Gladys.
Yeah.
She just sounds right up my alley.
Oh, yeah. I knew you'd enjoy this.
I can't wait to see pictures. And, it's just, she sounds awesome. And by the way, April, are you okay? Because it's way past your bedtime. We're nighttime.
Okay.
We're nighttime with the SheelaNaGig.
Just to be clear, it's 8:10 and my bedtime is 9.
Oh, you're not going to make it home in time, girl.
I'll manage.
Yeah.
Let's say goodnight.
All right. I also want to say we would love to hear your comments and your questions. We have so many good episodes coming up. We're super excited. We have some good interviews coming up too. Listen to those. And all of our sources and credits, our citations, can be found on our website. So please check those out, because obviously we could not do this podcast without having so much extensive sources.
Right.
Such extensive sources available to us, and we're very grateful for that.
And our website is SheelaNaGigPodcast.com.
All right. Thanks for listening, everybody. Have a great night.
Have a great night. Time for me to go to bed.
It sure is.
Unabashed in your